Hello, brothers and sisters. Hello, good-looking people. Good afternoon. Actually, good evening, because we have just trekked into the evening hour. My name is Zahid Makhdoom. I am your humble servant, and I will be communicating with you during the course of this evening as I introduce different people and I introduce different elements of what we are going to be doing. But before we do anything else, I would like to respectfully and gratefully acknowledge the generosity of the First Nations communities of Semiahmoo, Katsi, Kwikwetlem, Kwantlen, Kekat, and Tawasan for allowing us and affording us this opportunity to come to you and to talk with you from their lands. We are very grateful for that. I am currently the president of the Sharma Foundation. We established this foundation when Dr. Sharma croaked in 2010. And as he was in the process of checking out, he conspired with allied friends like Raj Chauhan and Harinder Mahal, Abi Sharma, and we established this foundation. The task of the foundation is to basically assist and help in bringing South Asian diaspora to light, so that we are all able to relate to one another and we say things to one another and deal with one another. Sharma Foundation is the one that has organized this event. We do this every year, where we acknowledge gracious help and commitment of the luminaries of our community who have done so much to make our society a better place, make our communities better communities. And we will be honoring tonight 4 distinct entities, but I should say 5 distinct entities, because one of those entity is a couple. And I think it's very important to recognize the beauty of this couple as they are not yet old. Usually we give these awards to people who are either, 80 years or older or something like that. But these 2 individuals are a remarkable and most beautiful anomaly. But before I say anything else, I would like to congratulate my Muslim brothers and sisters. Today is their first day of fast, and this is the day when Ramzan Sharif, as we call it in Sindh. I think in Arabic they call it Ramadan, but we don't know Ramadan in Sindh. We call it Ramzan Sharif, and I will call it Ramzan Sharif, so, because I'm Sindhi. And this is the first day of that Ramadan, and this is the fast time. I don't know if it is open or not yet. So a couple of things that we need to do, that it's important that we recognize that we are still reeling from the effects of a deadly plague. So whenever possible, try to maintain distance when you are attending the table where you have to pick the foods, or you are going to the bar area to pick up your glass of wine. It's always a good habit to have that little bit of distance. We will still love each other, but small and a little distance won't hurt. I also suggest that we do this ritual every time, so we do this ritual again. And this is a really great yoga exercise that will assist you and help you in your life. Reach out in your pockets or in your purses, take out that instrument that makes noise, and kindly shut it off. You will feel rewarded. or at least shut its noise. We know that these are difficult times. We are engaged in yet another wave of imperial wars. We won't talk about them. Wars bother us. We are peaceful people. We are non-violent people. And wars of any sort don't help us. How the evening is going to proceed, that we will start shortly. I will be inviting the Honorable Raj Chauhan, who is currently Speaker of our House, to come and say a few words, because today, believe it or not, today is the 75th anniversary of the seminal event that allowed us South Asians to become a vote-casting citizens in this province of British Columbia. It was 2nd of April 1947 when South Asians were granted that honor, and we are really privileged to see a number of our members of Legislative Assembly of South Asian origin. Rachna Singh is here. I think Harry Baines, I saw him earlier. He is here, and we are very grateful. Okay, and Mr. Jagrup, I apologize. I don't know politicians, so I kind of I apologize, Brother Jagrup. But we have those people, so we're very grateful to them. And Raj Singh, kindly come and bless us with your beautiful reflections.
Thank you, Zahid Bhai. I can see a screen in front of me. I thought it was my speech. It's just an agenda. Darn. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's my privilege to be here celebrating the 75th anniversary of our community when we granted that right to vote in 1947. But before I start, I want to introduce my colleagues who are here: Jagrup Brar, Rachna Singh, Honorable Bruce Ralston, and Honorable Harry Baines. They are here. It's wonderful that we get together and we can talk about our rights, because there was a time. Now we are in the legislature. There was a time we were not even allowed to enter that building, let alone be elected as MLAs. So a handful of people started arriving in British Columbia in 1895, but they were very few. So later on, more people came, and when more people started coming in 1903 and 1904, the racists and the bigots in the Legislative Assembly started getting panicked. So they were not willing and they were not ready to receive and accept people of color coming to British Columbia. And that's what happened. That's why on March 27, 1907, they passed a law. And I think I have the exact name of that bill. No, I don't have the bill number. But anyway, March 27, 1907, BC Conservative government passed that law to block South Asians from their right to cast ballots. They were banned from, they imposed 26 different restrictions on South Asians. Like, you can't be a lawyer, you can't be a pharmacist, you can't be any other profession like a chartered accountant and all that. So they were not allowed to enter into any of those professions. So the community got together, community was upset, naturally, and they were protesting. And there were a huge amount of protests, there were community demonstrations and meetings and all that, but nothing happened for 40 years. So, but around the Second World War, the movement which was trying to gain the right back intensified. At that time, the Khalsa Diwan Society, Vancouver, and their General Secretary, Naginder Singh Gill, provided wonderful, amazing leadership to mobilize the community. At that time, he also was supported by people like Darshan Singh Canadian. Darshan Singh Canadian is a well-known labor activist. He was the labor leader in the International Woodworkers of America, IWA we call. So, and also the community received a huge amount of support from CCF, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation. So, and as well as the other progressives in the community also provided lots of support for that. As the World War II was coming to end, people who fought outside, those soldiers, when they came back to Canada, they started realizing that when they fought shoulder to shoulder with other their colleagues in the war, they were appreciating the fact there are lots of South Asian, the Sikh soldiers who were there, who contributed so much. So they also started talking about sympathetically. So in 1943, Naginder Singh Gill took a delegation to Victoria to meet with the then Premier John Hart. He was joined by Darshan Singh Canadian and Didar Singh, who was the president of Khalsa Diwan Society of Victoria, and few others, and also the great leader of IWA, Harold Pritchett. So they were all went on a delegation to meet with the Premier to make an argument why South Asians should get that right back, but nothing was done. And he was not willing to entertain any thought of giving them equal rights. Although throughout this movement, the CCF, which later on, as we all know, became NDP, and the trade union movement and other progressive people played a huge role in order to mobilize people to raise that awareness. In February 1944, the CCF MLA Leafax introduced a private member's bill to give South Asian the right to vote. And he was supported by another CCF MLA, Laura Jamieson. They made a very strong argument in the legislature to get that right for South Asians, even though the Liberal government at that time vehemently opposed it. They spoke against the whole thing. And during that time, the Minister of Labor, at that time, his name was John Pearson, called Indians dishonest, untrustworthy, dirty, all kind of names that he used. So obviously the community was very upset, and they mobilized and they demanded that he should apologize. But he didn't do it. But when the pressure started building up and they were getting close to the next provincial election, so he did apologize in writing later on. And Naginder Singh Gill, Darshan Singh Canadian, and other progressive people in the community, they realized even though they were getting a huge amount of support from CCF and trade unions, but they needed a wider support in order to make sure that the government realizes the mistake. So before the next provincial election, which was called on October 25th, 1945, Naginder Singh, through his contacts, started meeting out with other candidates from all parties. So they created that kind of community spirit and put pressure on those candidates, and they also made commitment before election that they will support the idea to get the right back to South Asians. And Darshan Singh Canadian, he played a huge role in mobilizing the labor movement at that time. On March 11, 1946, when the government felt that pressure from the community, they then established an all-party election committee to review the BC Election Act. That was the first thing ever happened in order to accommodate at least the thought of giving the right back to South Asians. The committee meetings took place throughout British Columbia. They went from city to city, but the bulk of the meetings were in the Lower Mainland. 13 organizations made presentation to that committee. Out of 13, 12 organizations supported the South Asian right to vote. So then the committee on November 7, 1946, made their unanimous recommendation that South Asians should be granted the right to vote. So as a result, on April 2nd, 1947, Bill 85 was passed. That's when we got the right back to vote. So that's the history, a little bit about the whole thing, us losing that right to vote in those days. But as I mentioned earlier, there was a time when we were not allowed to go into that building. In 2005, when we were elected as MLAs, both Harry Baines and I, went into the legislature, and we started our opening speeches with that, saying that where we were and where we are today. And so we have made a huge gains since then, but a lot more still to be done. But I'm proud to say that with the New Democratic Party, we have made history in many ways. Under the NDP, there was the first South Asian MLA was Mo Sahota, South Asian. The first South Asian Premier, Ujjal Dosanjh. The first South Asian party leader in Alberta, Raj Pannu. The first South Asian Speaker, I think you know him. And the first South Asian national leader, Jagmeet Singh. So, it's all those gains been made, but we have to do a lot more yet, because the discrimination and racism is still there. We have experienced the discriminations by the indigenous people. Every day, they are still going through that. And we still don't have the same ratio of colored people in the government services yet. So we are getting there. Our government has made a huge gain there in that to achieve that goal, but still a lot more to be done. But what we have to do is now to make sure that all of us pledge that we continue to oppose racism, discrimination wherever we can, whenever we talk with people. As a Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, what I have decided to reach out to the Indigenous community throughout British Columbia to make sure that we reflect Indigenous culture inside the building. There was a time when we had very offensive, those pictures in the main hall, and they are all covered though. But now what I have decided, I'm reaching out to Indigenous artists, so we will have their artwork displayed in the legislature on a regular basis. I have also contacted some Indigenous leaders to make sure that we will be displaying the Indigenous language in front of the building. so that that language is protected. These are small things, but they're important things. So that's what we are doing. So I hope we learn from the history and we never, make those mistakes again. But here we are to celebrate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raj Saib. What a marvelous trek through history. Very grateful to you for enlightening us. And it was a remarkable journey that we took with you. You yourself, you are a historic character yourself. It is because of you that thousands and hundreds of thousands of farmers in this country are able to breathe freely, are able to receive the workplace justice which rightfully belong to them. And your contribution is remarkable. And we feel very grateful to you for that. I would like to take the liberty to momentarily invite Brother Harinder Mahil. He's a very beautiful person. He is currently, I think he's secretary of Hari Sharma Foundation, just newly elected last week. I would like to invite him to say a few words, and then we will get another comrade.
Thank you, Zahid. I'm not going to go into the history of the day. It's an important day for us. I want to welcome again to all of you. Many of you are friends. I particularly want to thank our board of directors of the foundation. Brother Zahid talked to you that the foundation was created in 2010. Basically, the purpose has been to advance the interest of the South Asian community. We do have better money. Since 2010, we've given 130,000 in scholarships to Samifa University. We have given out $460,000 in grants. And we invite speakers to speak on important issues. So I want to thank Zahid Makhtoom for his leadership. Our Vice President, Rachana Sharma, couldn't be here. We thank her as well. Patricia Gruben, our Treasurer, our Board of Directors, Ramana, Abi, Prem, and I'm forgetting one more. Oh, Sadhu Binning. There's one other thing I want to do is, I was asked by a friend today, every organization has some award ceremony, what's so different? And it made me think, what's different is we celebrate activists. If there is somebody who's become a multimillionaire in South Asian community, there are many of them. They've accomplished something for themselves. We much rather celebrate a union activist who's going day and night and trying to improve the lives of working people. There's one person here I want to, if I were to introduce, I could introduce each one of you, I could spend the rest of the evening. But I want to introduce one person. I want Stephanie to get up, Stephanie Fung. She is an organizer with the local 40. They've been on strike at Hilton Burnaby for last 1 year. Last 1 year. Since April 15th, 2021. And it's coming up, and we thank Stephanie for coming here. We applaud those workers who are on the picket lines, and later on, hopefully if we have time, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to talk about the strike. Thank you very much and enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Harinderji. It was beautiful. And thank you, Sister Stephanie, for gracing the occasion. Your presence is beautiful. I would like to now take the opportunity of inviting a fellow. I call him Imamul Nastiqeen. It's an Arabic word for the person who is the Imam of all heathens. And it's a remarkable place to be. Can you imagine that you are the high priest of heathens? And this is who he is. He's a beautiful poet, a beautiful human being, a beautiful scholar, a beautiful teacher. Has taught most of his life when he was teaching at UBC, Punjabi literature and Punjabi language. I am obviously talking about our brother, Dr. Sadhu Bening.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So it's the 75th anniversary of April 2nd, 1947, when we got the right to vote. And Raj Chauhanji have enlightened us about the history. And so it's what I need to say right away is that this is the first time that I know of that this day is being celebrated or remembered in the community. Myself and my friend Sakwant Hundal, way back in 1997, wrote a booklet. We did some research and wrote a book in Punjabi, Bharatiyan ne Canada vich vote da hak kis tarah liya. It was the 50th anniversary at that time, and also 100th anniversary of our communities coming here. One date is 1897, then when the Indians started arriving in BC, or Canada. So we did that in Punjabi at that time. Now it's translated. We both did the translation, and it's being published in English as well. And but the point is that when we did the research, we felt that that was the most important day that should be remembered. It wasn't. And I'm not a great poet. From artistic point of view, I haven't written any poetry, but I've written poetry, and which I, have my own definition of what poetry is, and then I don't care what others think. I was so angry, and then in 2003, I wrote a poem about April 2nd, 1947, and that was sort of criticism of the community, self-criticism, that we haven't remembered this day. When this law was passed, like Raji have told us, in Bill 85 was passed in, I think, 1946, November or somewhere there, and then it became the law in 47. The community, people who worked for this for 40 years, from 1907 to 1947, they felt that, I'm going to read a bit from there, if I can find it. So they expressed their wish in a report published in 1947 by the Khalsa Diwan Society of Victoria. They said, April 2nd will always remain a red-letter day in the history of our community as the day which brought us political freedom and equality with Canadian citizens under Dominion and provincial law. That's how they felt in 1947. But we didn't remember ever what they did. So like I said, this is the first time that I'm hearing that this day is being remembered. One person, just an example, what it meant to be not part of the community in full sense. Since we weren't able to vote for, that was just one sort of aspect. The other was that we weren't part of the society. We were on the margins. One person that I'd like to mention, Dr. Sadhu Singh Tammi, who came here in 1922, 100 years ago today, or this year. He was 16 years old at the time. He was the first turbaned boy to go to John Oliver School in Vancouver. He was the first one to do a PhD in Canada in 1937. Didn't get a job anywhere with a PhD. And so he became a freelance lecturer for CVC and from the union here and there. But he got a job with the ILO, International Labour Organization, when the UN offices were in Canada during the World War II. And so when the officers went back to Europe, he went with them and sort of spent his rest of his life in Geneva, wrote a novel about his early experience in BC called Maluka, sort of mainly based on his own life, in 1978. And we got hold of that novel through some friends, and we translated that. Myself, my friend Sukhwant Hundal, and Gurmail Rai, back in 87, and published it in Punjabi. And then after that, he became quite well known in Punjab as well. So anyway, I wanted to mention his name as the other person that I think not mentioned in sort of larger community is Darshan Singh Canadian, as Raj has mentioned his name a few times. He played a huge role. He stayed here in Canada for 10 years, from 1937 to 1947, and went back to India and remained an activist, a communist activist to the end of his life. He was killed by the Khalistanis in 1986 for opposing what they were trying to do. So a great man that should be remembered, and we haven't done anything in his name in BC or in Canada at all. He spent 10 years. What he did, he brought the whole trade union movement at that time behind this demand of the community. From 1942 to 1947, or 46, totally different things were happening in BC. Before, the labor movement was as much against non-whites as anybody else. But with IWA, he was part of the organizing committee. He was a communist. He was part of the Communist Party here in BC. And he did a huge amount, bringing both communities, the Chinese and the Indians, to the IWA. And with that, the whole labor movement in BC sort of supported this demand of the Indian community to have the right to vote. And so finally, we got that. And with that, one other thing that I'd like to mention, if I can find this part of my... Vancouver Sun journalist at the time, Elmore Philpott, he wrote this in the paper: "As a Canadian of European ancestry, I can testify to and stress the fact that this was a victory by Indians for Indians, but in larger sense by Indians in Canada for human equality everywhere." The streak that he did. So by winning the right to vote, this struggle not only made the Indians respectable in the eyes of the larger community. I'm reading from the part that Sukhwant Hundal and myself wrote, the book that I mentioned. I'm reading from that book or article. Indians respectable in the eyes of the larger community, it gave Canada a special place in the world. If the Canadian society is considered one of the best societies in the world, undoubtedly, the Indians contributed to this image by continuously struggling to change those discriminatory laws that divided people based on their color, race, religion, and other differences. And when they did this, especially during the 1940s, the number of Indians were down to from 1,200 to 1,700. There are different figures. But because of there was no immigration and Second World War, people during the sort of Depression era had gone back to India. So there were very few people here. But they kept on struggling. That is the main point, that they did not stop fighting for their rights. And that's what we need to remember. And that's the most important thing that people have sort of forgotten. Okay, so back in 2003, I was so angry. I wrote this poem. And from poetry, artistic point of view, there's nothing there, but this is my feeling. And I'm going to read I don't know if I read the whole thing or part of it. Respected elders, forgive us. Once again, we let April 2nd pass while in slumber. We know how beneficial it is to remember our history. And believe you us, we do a lot of history remembering all year round. True, so far we have not bothered to remember the victory you won after 40 long years struggle and gave us the right to vote. Dear elders, things are different now. We are doing quite well, thank you. While you had only a single organization called Gadar, we have dozens. Only people from the left supported you. We have support from political leaders of all different colors. And this is my anger coming in there. Only some eccentric poets wrote for you. For us, poets and singers line up, ready to sing anything and everything, from spirituality to sexy, sufficey melodies. They're teaching a different way of life. Eat, in Punjabi it sounds a little better, but in English. Eat, drink, and be merry. Take the Bhangra challenge if you dare. Do remember Bhagat Singh if you like, but don't be an atheist and a revolutionary like him. So on our stages, anyone can sing anything, rile anyone for any cause. We stop no one. We do all this in your name. There are praises all around. It is good for you, and it's good for us. The expenses for our festivals are paid by fashion industry. We award the winners of the newest fashion. The owners pat our backs, we pat theirs. We praise them, they praise us. It's a win-win situation. We Punjabis are at the zenith. There is happiness all around. No shortage of reasons to do Bhangra or Gidda. The most useful thing to remember is the golden rule of the ancient past. It's all a matter of destiny. Everyone reaps what they sowed in their past life. Things are different now. Our own brothers and owners are our own brothers are the owners. Class struggles are the things of the past. No exploitation by anyone of anyone. This is a unique era. Classes have all disappeared. We are all part of the valor. The word weakling is no longer part of our Punjabi dictionary. We are the owners of the land. We are the leaders of these provinces. We celebrate every day of our past with unbounded enthusiasm. Don't be disappointed at our failure to celebrate April 2nd. One of these years, we will begin to hold colorful fairs for this day as well. we will initiate a Khand Path in our few Gurdwaras. We are in dire needs of days to celebrate. We do have some constraints, mind you. This date is not at all that appropriate. For a powerful, successful Mela, this is the busy season of Vaisakhi. Before the COVID, if you remember how Vaisakhi is celebrated in Surrey especially. So good for all kinds of business and of course, spreading the word of the gurus. We will celebrate April 2nd for sure, sometimes during the summer, or we can tag it with Tiyan, the Mela, that goes on for 3/4 of a year. All kinds of entertainers come from Punjab, along with flying pigeons. We can easily invite a few local political leaders elected by people's votes. You will know how wisely we use the right to vote, for which you struggled for 40 long years. For now, forgive us, dear elders, we let April 2nd pass while in deep slumber. But this year, we are celebrating it. Thank you, everybody, for coming for this beautiful evening. And thank you, Harinder, Raj, and everybody who thought of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very grateful to you. So now we move to the first award of the evening. A friend of mine, now a friend of mine, but used to be my teacher at University of Alberta when I was engaged in a doctoral program there. His name is Dr. Raj Pannu. He shares name with our own Honorable Raj Chauhan. Raj he was a professor there, and then he became, as Raj said, a politician. I would like to invite a beloved friend of mine and a colleague on Hari Sharma Foundation, Abi, to come and introduce Raj to us. Raj cannot be here. He's really not feeling good. He's about 90 years old. And this morning, we were having a good conversation. He had even difficulty having a straightforward conversation over telephone. So he did write some stuff that I will read to you, but I will ask Abi to introduce them to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sai. Dr. Raj Pannu is a retired Canadian academic. Currently, he is a professor emeritus at the University of Alberta, where he taught from 1969 to 1996. In the two departments he taught, educational policy studies, faculty of education, and sociology, faculty of arts. Born in village of Doda, which is in Pakistan now, migrated to India in 1947 and settled down in Qadian. He got involved in the activities of AISF and in the trade union work. Took part in the Metal Workers Union in Jalandhar and went on 21 days of hunger strike. He worked as a lecturer there. Following retirement in 1996, he entered politics and served as a member of the Legislative Assembly of the province of Alberta from 1996 to 2008. During these 11 years as MLA, he also served for 4.5 years from 2000 to 2004 as the leader of the Alberta New Democratic Party and the leader of the NDP opposition in the Assembly. In addition, he served on many key committees of the legislature during the tenure as MLA. After the highly successful career as an elected opposition official, he retired from electoral politics in March of 2008. As an academic and sociologist, he has had a successful, productive, and rewarding career. His special areas of teaching, research ranged from political sociology, sociology of development and underdevelopment, neoliberal globalization, consequences and resistance, to sociology of educational systems, with a special focus on the politics of academic governance. His published work has appeared in book chapters and professional journals and periodicals, and some unpublished research manuscripts. Throughout his academic career, he had the pleasure of working collaboratively with the dozens of brilliant doctoral and master's students, many of whom came from overseas, directing them and supervising their theses and dissertation-related research projects. In addition to his engagement in teaching and research, he also took active part in the collegial administrative activities of the university, including chairing several important committees and participation in academic council. He is now very happily retired with his spouse of nearly 65 years of being together, Swinders. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I remember one of the Alberta elections, I went to see Raj, and we were just driving around, and we were driving through his constituency, didn't see a single sign of any other candidate other than Raj. I was shocked, and I asked him, I said that, are you trying to build a one-party constituency? I mean, who is opposing you? He said, yeah, but people don't want to put their sides. It's not my mistake. And then the next morning, I heard Anna Maria Tremonti, that was the election day, and she said that, oh, today we don't know what will happen. There are only two certainties, that Ralph Klein will win his seat in Calgary, and Raj Panu will win his seat in Edmonton. Other than that, all seats are open. And that was a beautiful time. This is what he sent this morning to read to you, and I quote, I'm deeply touched and humbled by the decision of Dr. Hari Sharma Foundation to bestow this honor on me. To be honored along with 4 other distinguished British Columbians, including Professor Sonera Thobani, the author of Exalted Subjects, Studies in the Making of Race and Nation in Canada, 2007. It is a truly seminal contribution to the field, an inspired and inspiring analysis of the subject. I first read it in 2014, 7 long years after its publication. I regret my absence from the celebration tonight. May I take this opportunity to applaud and congratulate all the fellow awardees for their ongoing contributions and radical social imagination. More moral courage is what is needed in this hard time. Hari Sharma had lots of it. It infused his social activism. Again, many thanks to the foundation for inviting me to attend. In solidarity, Raj Panu. End quote. I am accepting his award myself. I'm going there in a couple of weeks, so I'll give it to him. Otherwise, my son, who is here, he'll take it with him. I would now like to invite a very dear friend, a very special friend, a very kind friend, a decent, beautiful sister. Her name is Sandy Garosino. She belongs to the Indian Summer Art Society, and I would like her to kindly attend and introduce 2 of our most beautiful awardees tonight, Laura Bispalko, and Sirish Rao of Indian Summer Art Society.
How's everybody doing tonight? You know, it's such an honor to be here, and it's so wonderful to hear the stories of the union movement and the stories of the right to vote for the South Asian community. My husband is from the South Asian community, and multi-generations, and his grandfather and his father were part of the movement, and it's part of the family lore in our family that the importance of the trade union movement in winning the right to vote for Chinese and South Asian Canadians in British Columbia. So congratulations, great to be here. It's a huge honor to be introducing my dear, dear friends, Laura Bispalko and Sirish Rao. Laura gets to go first in the introductions, because for any of you who have attended or been part of or seen through media the Indian Summer Festival or attended an Indian Summer Festival, you have no doubt seen Sirish Rao and the incredible importance of what he has brought to this province and to the Lower Mainland and to Vancouver in highlighting and elevating and honoring the arts and cultural contributions and the importance of arts and culture, political importance of arts and culture, and the cultural contribution to the city life. What has been achieved by this organization and these two people. And Sirish has very much been at the forefront. But as we all know, every magic act, and the Indian Summer Festival is a huge magic act. And in every magic act, there's what they want you to see, and then there's the person behind, there's the other hand behind the scenes that is doing all the magic, and that is Laura Bispalko. And I can't say enough about her. I want to say a little bit about what both of them have contributed here, who they have brought, some of the great events that they have produced in the 10 years, or is it 12 years now? 12 years. Since the founding of that festival, they brought Booker Prize winner Jan Martel and put him on a stage and in conversation with Taboo. They brought Sharmila Tagore to our family's old warehouse, and they dressed it up and they made an old warehouse look like this magnificent, wonderful place, and put on a marvelous, marvelous evening with chandeliers and carpets and draperies, and there were films being played on the old cinder block screens way in the background, and Vikram Vij was putting on this marvelous, marvelous dinner. Other events, Naresh Fernandez of the Taj Mahal Foxtrot, giving the story of arts and cultural and the jazz movement in India, and how that was part of the civil rights movement, and how India participated in that through the jazz movement. These are just events that were put on, and the magic that took place, it wasn't just that these events happened, it was how they were framed, and how they were framed in a way that the media came. The media was like instant hit. Other people who have appeared, Amitav Ghosh talking about climate change and the importance of us to all look around the world at the impact of climate change. Arundhati Roy talking about land use and agriculture and land rights. Salman Rushdie, Urvashi Batalia, a Punjabi academic talking about partition and women and the trauma that has been sustained. And she was actually doing research, I believe, here in Surrey and in the Lower Mainland to find out more stories before these stories die of what happened during partition. Deepa Mehta, the Dabbawallas of Mumbai, Bharti Kaur, Aradhana Seth, Zakir Hussain, Anushka Shankar, Arijit Sen, Dr. L. Subramanian, all of these artists and so many more were presented in a way that was like an instant hit. The media fell in love with this story and fell in love with the culture and saw so much. And the public got to see the richness of this culture and the importance of it. So this was something that Suresh and Laura, this was magic that they brought to our city. And huge changes have happened in the last 12 years since that festival was first launched. And it's now they are moving on, they have done this work, and now this is going to be handed off as a mature festival into somebody else's hands. But it is my huge honor tonight to present to Suresh and to Laura and Suresh the Dr. Harry Sharma Lifetime Achievement Award. Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Sandy. Thank you, Zahid Bhai, for clarifying that it was not a vote of no confidence in any future achievements that we may have, but our cumulative age that brings us this Lifetime Achievement Award. It was very kind of you to say that from the beginning. Laura has designated me to speak today because in every collaboration there is a thinker and there's a talker, and so I am a speaker for this evening, and that is an admission of guilt. I wanted to also just thank Sandy, because Sandy, was for all the kind words, but also because we met about 12 years ago and just said that we had this idea for this festival. What do you think? Should we do it? And very few people are able to take a spoonful of information and see where it can go and then put their shoulders to it. And I think whether it's ours or Vancouver International Bhangra Celebration or Shane Kozan, the great spoken word artist, we've all been lucky enough to meet Sandy early in our careers and then benefit from the great vision that she has. So thank you, Sandy. But more seriously, I think that, I feel proud of what we've been able to achieve together and bring very different things, different skills together. We are very much of one heart and two very different minds. And I think that is something that's really beautiful. And it's very kind of all of you at Hari Sharma Foundation to recognize us for this, because in a way, I often think that a festival, or many of these kind of things, are collaborative events. They're a garden of sorts. Somebody prepares the soil, somebody else plants the seeds, somebody else waters it, someone else reaps the harvest, another cooks the feast, and then others come to it. So it's that sort of thing, and I think that very much wanted to recognize that it is, we were lucky enough to plant those seeds, but then it went into many other places. We've viewed the festival like that, as a feast, because the root word of festival is feast. Yeah, so the idea of the festival as a feast, as an invitation to a table, a meal, some food, is familiar and comforting. As diasporic festivals, a lot of what we do is to bring some comfort, not only to diasporic artists who often have the knowledge that old rivers run inside them and they need access to their culture. And I think having access to your culture is a deep and basic right. But also a feast because you must eat foods that are new and strange and maybe a little difficult to digest at first. Gosh, it does change your voice. But yeah, I mean, that is in a way the play that you must have of surprising, of comforting, and provoking. And that's what we've tried to do through the festival. But I also, a few days went through the sort of the artists that Hari Sharma Foundation has supported over the years. It's amazing because we've already mentioned Arundhati Roy and Amitav Ghosh on climate change and the specter of capitalism and right-wing nationalism in India and around the world. But also people like Kamila Shamsi and Mohsin Hamid, who speak of the migrations that are forced upon people in so many places in this moment. And the beauty of someone like Roop Sidhu, a local artist who worked with Black and indigenous artists to create a 4D immersive surround sound experience that brought chanting, the deep comfort of chanting in all these traditions, and offered it during the pandemic to healthcare workers in the downtown east side as a sort of embrace of sound. We've tried to keep doing things in different ways and nurture artists who do those things. Hari Sharma Foundation also supported the work of Sandeep Johal, a young artist who then was just arriving on the scene and now is the feature artist at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and nurtured very important conversations with Musqueam artist Deborah Sparrow, and the work in sort of bringing the ways in which South Asian and indigenous cultures may share some ways of storytelling, especially oral storytelling cultures. The knowledge that language is such an important thing, and that the diversity of language that exists is a reflection of the diversity of our human mind. And we have a crisis of the imagination now for sure. And so all of this work is something that you have supported, all of you here. And I just wanted to, hearing all of you speak and hearing of the great people who we share this honor with, thanks to our cumulative age, I just wanted to acknowledge that we stand on the shoulders of many people that were mentioned here, and many people in this room tonight too. I mean, we were talking, Laura and I, the other day to Mohammad Asani, who's a beautiful sitar player from here, and he was saying, sitar makers, they collect the wood, one generation collects the wood, the next generation makes the sitar. So I want to acknowledge that we stand and are able to do the work we do because we stand on many shoulders here tonight. No gathering here really can go without remembering Chin Banerjee. He was a dear, wonderful, tender, and ferocious man, as you all well know. And it was Martin Gottfried and Patricia Gruben, who were sitting there, who again gave the festival a start in its early days, who introduced us to him. And then, we have Abhi Sharma here, we have Sadhu Bining, Harinder Mahil, and of course the great Zahid Makhdoom. The last event that Indian Summer did in person was the launch of Arundhati Roy's My Seditious Heart, where another friend of Hari Sharma Foundation, David Barsamian, interviewed her. And then in that evening, Zahid hosted us all with his legendary Mystic Mash. And the talk swirled, and Chin was there, and it was so beautiful. And if we are able to spread that beauty through the festival, and if we are able to, in a way, really what our work is to show that art is deep medicine. And thank you for the support of that work. I invite you all to the next edition of the festival, July 7th to 17th. The theme is Inner and Outer Climates. And I think we're trying to recognize the fact that our biological systems are profoundly connected to the ailments of our biological systems are profoundly connected to the injustices of our political and economic systems. And that there is healing in art, and in healing ourselves, then maybe we can do something in the wider world as well. So again, thank you so much. And thank you for the 3 mics who helped us this evening.
So nice, beautiful friends. I mean, you can't say much about people who are so beautiful. You can just leave it alone, and the beauty remains. I would like to invite another beautiful friend. He was, I think he was probably born in Pakistan, or he was maybe born in Kuwait, in one of those places. But he is of Pakistani origin, or he says so, from the Punjab area of Pakistan. He's a beautiful person. I just met with him recently. He's written a book on a Kamagara Maru. In addition to that, he is a poet of substantive heft. I would like to invite my brother and friend Tariq Malik to give us a poem.
Thank you, Zahid Bhai. Thank you. So we are gathered here to celebrate a colonial moment. I think the way I would mark it is with marking two colonial moments. The first one in this two-part poem, which is taken from my forthcoming poetry book, Exit Wounds. The two moments are 100,000 nights apart. It just happens that the colonial period begins and ends 100,000 nights apart. I begin with the moment of disenfranchisement from political discourse. The poem, the first part of the poem is called Encountering Terra Nullius. Embarking from one wet, convulsive, wind-swept and isolated isle, you came armed with the unshakable faith in your musket, sail, book, thought, color, and confident that all you traversed, land, streams, rivers, seas, oceans, were immediately stripped of their original peoples, names, ownerships, histories, and rendered terra nullius, no man lands, awaiting your christening, in celebrating your various inbred monarchies. There was nothing left for you to learn as you proceeded to encircle the globe, calling it your personal granary. You planted nothing, you harvested endlessly. And in every season, with such ferocious greed that the scorched lands groaned, our sea has run out. With your pantries overflowing and your armories bristling, the bully with the stick now set out to civilize the world. The vagaries of winds and the fate of tides would deliver you to my shores, where we were too polite to reject your cheap offer of cheap trinkets and welcomed you with open arms. Our ensuing home invasion would last 100,000 nights until the day the bully would lose his stick and could no longer civilize us. We are still trying to awaken from your unleashed nightmare and to come to terms with this subcontinent-sized hole you left in our futures. Second part of the poem. This one is of colonial denouement, when kleptomaniacs decamp. The concept of kleptomania and colonialism is a line that I've been pursuing throughout this book, that colonialism itself is a form of kleptomania. when kleptomaniacs decamp. You check your pockets for lint. You toe the coin in your shoe. You weigh the antimony in your beloved's eyes. Her bindi, her silenced anklet bell. Here she is, flashing her creaseless palms. Look, they even stole our fortunes. When kleptos decamp, they take what they covet but do not really need, knowing that what they have unmade, the survivors will undo with bare hands and unleashed tongues. Afterwards, the village was full of gossip. From the rape of our land, 2 stillborns sloughed off. Someone screamed, "Shame." Others tossed stones. Someone tore the roof over our heads, while the perpetrator, salivating at other cataclysms to mete out, departed tactlessly 100,000 nights too late. Come summer, with the rivers overflowing their banks, our washed blood enriched our harvests. Eventually, like every migratory flock, we have learned to abandon our tempered nest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Tariq. Very grateful to you. I think we need to move on because shortly there will be really yummy food that you really want to eat. And after the food, we also have a remarkable music program for you. A young person of South Asian origin, but born in Fort St. John, is going to play for you. So I would like to, at this point, invite a beautiful friend I love very much and respect very much. He is my leader, Mr. Harinder Mahil, to come and introduce the award for our remarkable friend, Chalia Prem Raja.
Thank you, Zahid. I have the privilege of introducing the next award recipient, who I believe has been an activist most of his life, whom I've known for the last 25 years. That's Chalia Prem Raja, also known to most of you as Prem. Prem was born in a rural village in northern Sri Lanka. He belongs to the Sri Lankan minority Tamil community. He became active in the trade union movement in Sri Lanka when he was working in a bank. When the racial tensions began to rise in Sri Lanka in the 70s, he left for the United Kingdom. There he was involved in anti-apartheid movement and church action activities on Namibia. When he migrated to British Columbia as a nurse in 1989, he became active in the BC Nurses Union. He was a member and activist in the union from 1994 till his retirement to 2011. One thing I've noticed about Prem, he doesn't seek any limelight. He doesn't seek any leadership. You tell him, we need you, Prem. Whether it's a picket line or a meeting, he will be there. He has been a member and activist of the South Asian Network for Secularism and Democracy, also known as Sansad, from 1996, and with Dr. Hari Sharma Foundation from the very beginning in 2010, and currently he's a board member. I believe he's been a board member since the foundation was established. He's a life member of the Tamil Cultural Association and was its president in 1997 and 1998. He's a life member of the BC Senior Shanti Nilayam, and currently he's its assistant secretary. He has been a member of the Canadian Amnesty International since 1994. He's currently a board member of the Gilmore Park United Church in Richmond, BC. He's married, has 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren, and I would invite Prem to come here and say a few words. Prem?
விட்டு விடுதலையாகி நிற்பாய் இந்த சீட்டுக்குருவி போல சென்று விடுவீர் எட்டு திக்கம் செல்வங்கள் யாவும் கொணர்ந்து சேர்ப்பீர். சுப்பிரமணியம் பாரதியார். எங்கு தனியும் இந்த சுதந்திர தாகம். Subramania Bharadiyar. Subramania Bharadiyar is a poet, activist, was born in Sri Lanka, in India, Tamil Nadu, in a village called Ettayapuram. He was born in 1882 and he died in 1921. Engu Thaniyum in the Sudandara Thaham, when shall the quench for freedom? I will relieve. He wasn't there when India got its independence in 1947. He died at the age of 39 years. Still, his poem, his writings, and his version of fighting for the people of oppressed, particularly the caste issue, it still reverberates and it spread across the globe where Tamils live. Tamil Nadu, 72 million people, twice the population of Canada, almost. And in Singapore, Tamil is an official language. If you look at the Singapore dollar, which is almost equivalent, $94 of the Canadian dollar, Tamil is mentioned there. 300,000 Tamils live in Toronto alone. Statistics varies. 500,000 in United Kingdom and Europe. Why this happened? Then I was doing some research. It came to a portion of Kottu Adimahal, bonded labor. Bonded labor by the colonialist took the people from India, and particularly from the southern area, not only to Sri Lanka to work in the tea estates, but also to the plantations in Mauritius, in Suriname, and so on. So the Tamil is being spoken there too. But bonded labor, what's the difference between the bonded labor and temporary foreign workers? Is almost the same. So things happened under the colonial regime by the British, and long before that by the Dutch and the Portuguese. Sri Lanka was ruled by the Portuguese in 1500s. And still happening today. So we have long way to go in spite of our education, in spite of our research, in spite of our activism. We still have bonded labor in various places. Today, Unite 40, our trade union leader is there. They have lost their jobs. Due to the COVID, the hotels closed and sent their laborers away, the workers away. In a modern world, one of the richest countries in the world, we still face this problem. So this is the rise-up call for the activists, for the people, for the community at large, to stand with the workers right now on and forever and ever, because things have changing. It's not like the Bob Dylan, things have changed. He sung so many years ago, but things are changing because we have to change our attitude. As I speak, today there is curfew in Sri Lanka. Why? It's one of the people are struggling for food, for rice, for lentils, for the medical aid. India immediately sending food. And the president had declared emergency. So these are the troubles or the situations we are facing today. And in that context, when I moved in here and when I met the two important personalities in my life, Dr. Hari Sharma, or Hari Bhai, and Chin Bhai. And these two individuals gave me strength and courage, along with the others of the Hari Sharma Foundation, as well as the censored. I was able to do my contribution to the community, not necessarily locally, but also to the people of Sri Lanka, where there was a 30 years of civil war. Even today, we are fighting for the disappeared and those who have lost their children during the civil war. There is no accountability at all. So these are the problems we face in today's world, and for that matter, Hari Sharma Foundation, and particularly the censored, right from 1996, the encouragement given by Dr. Sharma and Dr. Chin Bhai, and we are ever so grateful. And once again, I'm very humbled to receive this award. I'm not eligible for any of these awards, but something that may encourage our community in and around the globe, so that we can move forward and bring happiness to the large number of people across the globe. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
What a beautiful friend. It's really beautiful to be in the company of people like Chalya Premraja. It's genuinely inspiring. It moves you as a person when you see people like him and be able to spend time with them. Hari Sharma died on 16th of March in 2010. And we are very grateful to him. And we continue to sing his praises because he did lots for the community. And his last act of generosity for the community was establishment of Hari Sharma Foundation. And I would like to take a moment to reflect upon how wonderful Hari was to allow us this opportunity to get together. He was our hero, and I feel very grateful to him for that. After he, as I say, I always say he croaked, but he died basically. The mantle transferred to our another beautiful friend, a remarkable individual, Dr. Chin Banerjee. He led us for 10 years up until 29th of July 2020. This is Chin. He was dying next day. He knew it. Day before, he was talking with me, and he says that, make sure that your name is on the executive of the West Coast Committee Against Racism. Like a week before, or a few weeks before his death, he was organizing a committee against racism with Brother Robert Hornsey, who is right there, a beautiful comrade. These are the people, this is the legacy that we have. We have the legacy of people like Raj, who is sitting here. Sister Rachna Singh, Harry Benz. These are beautiful people. They have invigorated our presence, and which is beautiful. To have a presence is one thing, but to have a presence which is radiant is something else. And these are the people who have done it. And very grateful to all of you for doing that, Brother Jagrup. Thank you for doing that. I would like to now invite a brother, a comrade, a friend, a beautiful friend, Dr. M.V. Ramana from UBC. He's currently director of Liu Center there. Another beautiful friend. What else can I say about him other than the fact that he's beautiful? To introduce our next awardee, the most inspiring Dr. Sunaira Thobani.
So Prema mentioned Subramanya Bharatiyar, the poet, and our next awardee is also someone who I can, who think befits one of the great poems of Bharatiyar, which says, "Achamellai, achamellai, achamembadillaye, uchi meeri vaanidindu veelugintra podilum, achamellai, achamellai, achamembadillaye," which means that there shall be no fear, we shall not fear, even if the roof were to break and the sky were to fall on our heads, we shall not be afraid. And I think Sunaira sort of exemplifies that. It's my great pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Sunaira Thobani, a professor in the Department of Asian Studies at the University of British Columbia. Like all academics, she has done a lot of academic work. I'm not going to tell you all about her history. We've already been told that food is getting ready. And more important, we want to hear from Sunaira, right? And so if you want to know about where she was born and things of that sort, I urge you to go to DuckDuckGo, not Google, and put in her name, and you will see right in front, a Wikipedia entry, and then her UBC biography, and you can read all about that. So I'm just going to say a few things about her, okay? And I also want to remember what Harinder said, which is that the reason we honor people is not because they've written books and so on and so forth, but because they are activists in a way, right? And Sunaira's work is located within a long and glorious tradition of scholars whose research is informed by activism and engagement in struggles. And in Sunaira's case, those struggles include the anti-racist, feminist, and anti-war movements. She served in numerous important positions, including the director of the Race, Autobiography, Gender, and Age Raga Center, and as the president of the National Action Committee on the Status of Women Canada. She's also a founding member of Researchers and Academics of Color for Equity. My own introduction to Sunaira's writings came in March 2016. A couple of months after I interviewed for my current job at UBC. So had not been offered the job. I was still learning a little bit about UBC, trying to figure out what kind of a place I might go to or not go to. And Sunaira had written an insightful article on UBC's first non-white president, Dr. Arvind Gupta, who stepped down after just 13 months of a 5-year term. The article's takeoff was a comment made by the chair of the Board of Governors of UBC to Dr. Gupta. He said, "You must refrain from thinking controversial thoughts out loud." And I think Sunaira has been an example. It sort of actually inspired me to say, if somebody is going to write about this against the wishes of the board, the chairman of the board, then that must be a good place to go to. And Sunaira has been a great example of the importance of not just thinking controversial thoughts, but also articulating them publicly and eloquently. Her bold public stances on many occasions have been commendable, and one from 2001, soon after the attacks on the World Trade Center, is particularly notable. And I'm not going to go into all that happened after that. Again, you can go back to the Wikipedia page, you'll read all about it. But I just want to sort of say, today as we observe the dangerous hypocrisy of mainstream media rushing to highlight the plight of the victims of Russia's horrific attacks on Ukraine, while ignoring the victims of Israel's occupation of Palestine or Saudi Arabia's attacks on Yemen, and more importantly, the US and Canadian contributions to these aggressions. I would like to remind us of a question that Sunera posed in 2001. We feel the pain of those attacks every day. We've been watching it replayed constantly on television. But do we feel any pain for the victims of US aggression? I think that's an important question. It's my pleasure to sort of introduce Sunera. I've had some experience of working with her through UBC's Center for India and South Asia Research, and it has always been a real joy. She's quiet and sincere, and absolutely a wonderful person to have as a colleague. Once again, let me reiterate what a pleasure and honor it is for me to be introducing this committed scholar, activist, courageous public intellectual, and excellent colleague. Oh, sorry. You're loud enough. You can speak.
I know, I can. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm just so touched. Thank you so much. And please don't Google me. There's lots of very negative commentary about me, and you might decide to take the award back. But I would like to begin by thanking everybody in the Dr. Hari Sharma Foundation for honoring me. Of course, it's really wonderful when your own community will honor you. So I'm just very, very pleased. Thank you very much. I'm also very pleased to be part of this very illustrious group of nominees for this year. It's really wonderful to learn more about your work as well. I will, of course, begin by recognizing that we are on indigenous territories and that indigenous peoples are still struggling for sovereignty on this land. And that is the part of the acknowledgement of us being on indigenous territories that we can never forget. That indigenous peoples are fighting for sovereignty, and it becomes our responsibility to support those struggles for solidarity. And if it wasn't for the activism of indigenous women who organized against the murdered and missing women, starting from Vancouver City, that was where the first memorial march was organized by indigenous women. If it wasn't for indigenous women activists organizing against the trauma of the residential school system, reconciliation would not be on the Canadian national agenda today. So it's really important for us to recognize these struggles and to ally with the struggles. I'm glad that we are celebrating, remembering, and with Sadhu being angry about the erasure of our histories, but also about the important struggle for getting the vote for the South Asian community. But we should never forget that indigenous activists call getting the Canadian vote the final solution. So even as we struggle to get access to the vote, we should never forget what that vote is costing other people who have much stronger claims to this land. So certainly we are very, very proud of the activists who worked so hard, who fought so hard to get the vote for the South Asian community. And I'm totally, totally with Sadhu in the anger. I think anger is a wonderful, wonderful motivating factor. But I also remember, a very nice incident when Sadhu was angry, but incredibly moving in his ability to perceive other people's experiences. I remember when I first moved to Vancouver, and I was at an event where Sadhu was reading his poetry, and it was poetry, whatever other people say. And the poem was about the mirror and I forget if it was called My Mirror or The Mirror, but it was so moving and so powerful. My Mirror. And that, it still sends shivers up my spine when I try and remember that poem. So thank you very much, Sadhu, and I think we need more anger in our community. I'd also like to begin by recognizing and acknowledging Dr. Hari Sharma, because not many people know, but I came to Canada to study with Dr. Hari Sharma. I came here as an international student, and I wanted to work with Dr. Hari Sharma. So, it's a very, very a meaningful moment for me to be recognized by the foundation that was established in his name. So I think it's important that we take the time to celebrate our community's achievements. Winning the right to vote in 1947 in what was founded as a white man's country was no small task for South Asians and for the other racially minoritized communities who were also fighting for the vote. These communities were denied political rights because of their race. The accomplishments of our communities then and since have brought about necessary change in this settler colonial society. It is struggles like the one that was waged by South Asians and other communities of colors that have made democracy mean anything in Canada today. However, even as we celebrate these moments, it is important that we not forget the challenges that we face in the present or those that lay ahead of our communities. The times we live in are volatile. They are very dangerous times. This is a time of great change. We are living through the remaking of the international order, which depends on a redrawing of the racial lines that are foundational to this international order, as they are to the Canadian nation state. This international order that has been in place since the Second World War is collapsing everywhere around us. The climate crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, the ever-expanding wars around the world, the rise of ultra-nationalist and white supremacist forces, the refugee crisis, all are events that point to a global order in crisis. The old order is being unmade almost by the day. What will emerge in its place is not yet clear. It is therefore the demand of this time that we understand these momentous transformations, that we link them together, because we are called to draw upon the lessons of our own histories, of our past struggles. These are the only issues that will sustain us as we look to build a just future, a just world. The war on terror transformed the political landscape across the West as well as in the rest of the world. Islamophobia became pervasive, and the demonization of Islam and of Muslims became the basis for the elevation of Western culture, its norms and practices as superior. Western liberal democracies became equated with the idea of human freedom. In the US, nationalism has taken a rampantly white supremacist form. Canadian nationalism has also shifted significantly to the right in this period. In Canada, the invasions, occupations, killings, and torture of the global war were redefined as humanitarianism. Canadian pride in multiculturalism now coexists with public endorsements of Canadian culture as superior in relation to the fanaticism of Islam and Muslims. This discourse has legitimized violence as the only means of governance of Muslims around the world. 2002 genocide in Gujarat would not be possible without the launch of the global war on terror in 2001. So this Islamophobia is being picked up. It is not only transforming Canada, the US, and Western societies, it is also profoundly transforming South Asia and other regions around the world. This discourse of Islamophobia, as I said, has legitimized violence. US exceptionalism resurrected the idea of Western superiority in that country. Canadian humanitarianism upholds this idea in this country. US white nationalism and Canadian multiculturalism interact with, shape, and uphold each other. Together, they give meaning to the idea of the West and to its racial imperial politics. In Canada, which is still a white settler society, the violence against and dispossession of Indigenous peoples remains ongoing. The present nationalist project of reconciliation seeks to integrate Indigenous peoples into the Canadian state. This racialization of Indigenous peoples is accompanied by the construction of Black peoples, even today, as less than human, as pathologically criminal, and of Asians, including South Asians, as racially degenerate and aliens to Western modernity. Historically, Indigenous genocide and the labor of Black and Asian peoples was integrally connected. Genocide of Indigenous people cleared the land. Racialized labor was vital to the development of Canada's national economy, which, like that of the US, was reliant on colonialism, slavery, and indentureship. So today, if we think of race as a form of discrimination or the result of prejudice and ignorance, we miss the point that race shapes the global political economy, that capitalism has always been racial capitalism, and that race shapes the psychological and social formation of whiteness, which continues to dominate in Canada. It is important to learn from our history. Our communities won the right to the vote in the context of the international changes that were being brought about by anti-colonial and anti-racist movements of the mid-20th century. Canada and the US were compelled to change by these movements. Both countries responded with the emergence of a racial liberalism that offered inclusion to communities of color, that opened up immigration from the newly independent third world countries. The need for labor was acute in North America at this time, as it was in Europe. Canada relied on immigrant labor. Indeed, it still does. If we look at who are the frontline workers in the COVID pandemic, who are called upon to risk their lives every day, as Canadians, middle-class Canadians, go out on their balconies in the afternoon, or they did in the first phase of the pandemic, to bang pots and pans, to celebrate the bravery of these frontline workers. These frontline workers are mostly people of color. So Canada continues to rely on our labor, yet Canada is also committed to preserve its bilingual and bicultural, that is, British and French character. Hence, even as our communities won the vote, won increased access to education, to the professions, to citizenship rights, people of color were nevertheless categorized as immigrant communities, as visible minorities, as newcomers. In this context, multiculturalism fixed the idea that people of color were distinguished by and could be reduced to their cultural difference. Race was now coded as culture, so that the term immigrant was read in racialized terms. Hence, even the second, third, fourth generations in our communities are still categorized as immigrants, as visible minorities, as newcomers. Multiculturalism is the official language of race in Canada. It organizes this society's racial politics and racial hierarchies. Yet multiculturalism also allows the Canadian nation to be presented as beyond race. Canada presents itself as such even in a moment when the discourse of Islamic cultural barbarism justifies and legitimizes the country's occupations, invasions, and imperialist wars. Multiculturalism has become a state-supported form of quote-unquote anti-racism. It denies the reality of racism, even as the racial hierarchy that shapes our workplaces, access to education, healthcare and social services, treatment by the police and other institutions of the state remain in plain sight. The promise of inclusion, therefore, exists alongside the actuality of racial violence, anti-Black and anti-Indigenous violence, against anti-Asian racism, alongside anti-immigrant and anti-refugee sentiments, and alongside the cheapening of immigrant and migrant labor, of frontline workers, and also of international students in our communities. This is what race looks like on the ground. To focus on racial discrimination and individual prejudice only when discussing race is to see only the tip of the iceberg. Race is the DNA of the Canadian nation state. This assimilationist multiculturalism furthers liberal languages of governance. They have marginalized Black, Indigenous, and other anti-racist and anti-colonial movements today. Multiculturalism displaces demands for racial justice and for an end to racial violence, for Indigenous sovereignty onto the terrain of cultural difference. The solution offered to racial violence and injustice is more tolerance, better intercultural communication, celebration of the song and dance version of culture. Political culture is not recognized. The political culture of our communities is not recognized in this language of multiculturalism. The promise of inclusion, of justice, is thus permanently deferred. Yet even this multiculturalism, racial liberalism, its politics have reached their limits. Even as the project of decolonization in South Asia, across the third world remains incomplete, the crisis of white supremacy has overtaken global politics. The war in Ukraine demonstrates to us daily how war in Europe and European refugees are distinguished. They get attention from the highest levels of the state, from the deepest pockets of the nation. How these wars in Europe and refugees who are defined as white, blue-eyed, blonde are subject to a completely different experience than the wars in the Middle East, of refugees fleeing the global war on terror, of the wars in Gaza, in Palestine, refugees from Palestine. Today, white men can officially declare to immigration officers that they are going to Ukraine to fight, that they will become military warriors once they get there, and they are encouraged and celebrated as heroes. Compare that with the treatment of any person of color who dares to stand up and say, I'm going to fight this unjust system, this completely violent international order. So certainly our communities want an expansion of liberal rights. We must never forget that is what they are, liberal rights. They can be a means, they can never be an end in itself. What we have seen, of course, is the decline of legislated racial discrimination and segregation, the opening up of immigration. And I do not want to discount those struggles. They have been very important. None of us would be here if it was not for those struggles. Yet multiculturalism has also had an integrationist impact on our communities. In the process of using the gains that we have won, the vision of a fundamental transformation of colonial and imperialist societies, of a revolutionary transformation of Canada and of the global economy, of a transformation of how wealth and power are generated and how they are distributed. In short, the vision of racial and economic justice has lost ground in our communities. The war on terror, the COVID-19 pandemic, the rise of ultranationalist and even fascist movements and leaders are bringing about the erosion of the liberal democratic institutions that promised communities like ours a measure of inclusion. All the while, racial neoliberalism is deepening and broadening economic inequality within the West and between the global North and the South. COVID has laid bare these stark inequalities. Today, the climate crisis is escalating all around us. Wars and violence have thrown the international order into upheaval. Changing these conditions, the responsibility to fight for a better future, for racial justice for all of humanity, is as much our responsibility, as much in our hands as in any other hands in this world. Thank you very much. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunera ji. Very grateful to you. The food is ready. We can eat, but before we go, I think we would like to give a couple of, we would like to lend our ears to a beautiful sister who has trekked all the way from the metropolis of Burnaby to be here, Sister Stephanie, to enlighten us about what's going on at Hilton at Metrotown.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank Harinder for inviting me to the dinner tonight. I'm really grateful to be here, and I feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm just so grateful today. So thank you so much. I'll just keep it really short. So I'm an organizer for Unite Here Local 40, BC's Hospitality Workers Union. During the pandemic, 50,000 hotel workers were laid off. And instead of bringing them back to their jobs, many of the hotels across the province have terminated them. Many of the hotel workers are women of color. They've been there working at their hotels for decades. And as a union, we're trying to help these workers and fight together to save their jobs and make sure that they go back to their hotels, because we know that the pandemic it's temporary, business is gonna come back, so workers should be able to go back to their jobs. So at the Hilton Metrotown, workers, almost 100 workers were fired, and the rest were locked out, and they've been locked out for almost a year. And on April 14th at 5 p.m., we're having a huge rally at the Hilton Metrotown to put pressure on the hotel and say, look, we stand behind these workers. Many of them are Asian women, from the Philippines, from India, from China, and many of them really want to go back to their jobs, and it's not right. And so we're expecting about 500 people to turn up. We've invited politicians, city councilors, the Burnaby mayor will be there, other unions, and a lot of community groups. And this is a huge moment, and I would really appreciate, if you have some time on Thursday, April 14th at 5 p.m. to please come out and support these brave workers who have been locked out on the picket line through the rain, through the snow, through the heat every day to save their jobs. So thank you so much, and
Well, let's eat, and maybe we can be a little bit responsible, give each other a little space. Fill up your plates and come back, and we will set up the stage for the Metro Nomad to lead us through his set. Thank you very much. We are going to move on to the next stage now that your tummies are full. And we have a musical entertainment being provided by a locally born artist, born in Fort St. John, lives in Edmonton. I don't know why. But people make choices, you can't argue with that. And he's going to sing for us. I'm not going to introduce him. The guy who is going to introduce him is Abi Sharma, if I can find him. But before I get Abi, I would like to take the liberty of inviting one friend to say a few words about West Coast Coalition Against Racism, Brother Robert Hornsey. I want him to tell us something about W.C. Carr and what it's up to. And then Abiji will take over and walk us through the music.
Thank you. Wow, I'm always humbled to be in the presence of this group and knowing that you're all really warriors of the First Order, and I'm really am humbled. And listening to all of the amazing stories about everybody, and I'm hearkening back there to Sadhu, who is celebrated as a poet and academic, and that him and I were field workers for the Farm Workers Union when they were trying to put it together, and we went out as a team. And because I was a white guy and couldn't speak any of the East Indian languages, he got to go out in the field and organize people. My job was to take the notice up to the farm owner's door while they set out the Rottweilers. And I'd say, holy shit, it's a Rottweiler. And I'd look over, and there's Sadhu out there talking to people out in the field. So, I have mixed feelings about Sadhu. I was a sacrificial white guy, yeah. Anyways, I do, right from the outset, the Chin was insistent about the intersectionality of systemic racism, how it's all tied together. And I heard lots of people here referring to that. So one of the things that we have coming up to highlight that, back on the table by the door, there's this really quite lovely poster. And attached to the back of it is an outline of what's going on. So it's called Roots, Rhythm, and Resistance, Anti-Racism Symposium and Performance. And that's going to take place over 3 days in May, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And it'll feature 7 workshops getting to the idea of intersectionality. And these are all really amazing people going to make these presentations. One of them is on racism in the healthcare system, racism in labor justice. Then on May the 22nd at the Moberly Cultural Center in South Van, there's a panel on food sovereignty. And at the end of that, there's an award-winning film that'll be hosted by producer Tiffany Ayalek called Food for the Rest of Us. And there's also a panel on abolition and one on land, water, and air defenders. And then on the 23rd at the Japanese Hall, 23rd of May, there's a panel on housing justice, missing, murdered, and indigenous women and girls, and Two-Spirited. And on that day as well, there's an array of performances with the Butterflies in Spirit Dance Troupe, Ronnie Dean Harris, taiko drummers, and Pixic. And so the idea here is to carry forward that idea of intersectionality. This is all connected. It's all rooted in colonial racism, as we've heard eloquently explained. And so we'd really like to pick one of these flyers up. It'll tell you how to get more information. And we'd really like to see everybody here attend this event. It is the heritage of Chin Banerjee, the leadership and the vision, for sure. And one other thing, also back there on the table is this little poster, and it says, the West Coast Coalition Against Racism stands in solidarity with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, defending their sacred trust as people of the inlet with their action that this pipeline ends here. And so this happens on Saturday, May 9th at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and they you heard really elegantly the similarities and the commonalities between struggles that South Asian people have put forward and where that links in with the colonial exploitation of Indigenous people in Canada and everywhere. But this is a gathering that will likely attract thousands of people. There'll be international Indigenous leaders from all across North America, and it is the kind of thing that the West Coast Coalition Against Racism really needs to be there. We need to carry our banner, and you were just asking, what kind of jobs could we get you to do? We could get you to show up and carry the banner. Okay, so thanks for giving me a minute to say that, and I really appreciate all of the angry, forward-thinking energy that's going to make a difference to make this a better world. Thanks.
Thank you, Zai-Sign. Friends, now it's time for music, a good music. Yeah. This is a wonderful talk, and hopefully it has brought our morale to that next level. Now to the music, and precisely for that reason, we have a special guest with us here tonight, and he comes with his wonderful life partner, Manal. She's sitting right there, and they come from Edmonton. So we are really lucky to have them over here. And Mustafa Makhdoom, he's right here. And family and friends fondly call him Muji. And his artistic name is the Metro Nomad.
Yes,
Metro Nomad. He's a Canadian singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist, influenced by such diverse creative forces as Neil Young, Bon Iver, and Jeff Buckley. Music has taken the Metro Nomad across the world. His albums have found commercial success with radio play across North America as far as Asia. His albums have ranged a variety of genres, from folks to indie rock to a Hindi-English fusion album with a fellow Canadian Pakistani music needs. Yeah. Music is the Metro Nomad's first passion. His first passion is music. So obviously that's pretty obvious here. Living and breathing its language every day, he seeks to be a messenger for its powerful force, connecting people with each other, as well as inspiring us to the heights of emotions, both high and low. Friends, let's put our hands together for our Muji on the stage.
Thank you.
The stage is yours.
I have.
Oh, you have that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I am so happy to be here. This is wonderful. Thank you to the Hari Sharma Foundation for helping me and inviting me to come play. Thank you to my dad as well, who helped get me on this stage. Before I start, I just want to say it's my immense honor. There's so many of my elders here, and I didn't even know that on 1947 South Asians were given the right to vote. So for me, that was incredibly enlightening, and it speaks to the decades of dedication that all of our elders here have shown. And so I want to thank them and tell them that inspires the younger generation to actively contribute in a positive manner to our communities. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to start off with some music here. I'm going to play some originals. I'm going to play some covers. I'm going to mix it all up for you. We're going to start off with a little instrumental piece. I got a little looper here, so it lets me do things like this. Hey, what's up? This. Hey, what's up? This. Hey, what's up? Right? But we'll do better stuff than that. This is an instrumental piece I wrote. It doesn't have a name. It does have what's it called? Beats per minute, a rhythm that I got to pull out right now, so it's right on the key. So give me 1 second to grab my metronome. Actually, speaking of which, I'll tell you why my stage name is the Metronomad and where it comes from. It comes from a metronome, which is steady, click, 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 click. But a nomad, of course, is free-flowing. And so in music, you find fluidity and steadiness all at once. And so that's where the Metronomad comes from. Now give me a second here while I can pull out my metronome. All on my phone now, right? Beauty. All right. We're all set. Thank you. To get us started here, We're gonna hop into a cover. This is a good old Dylan song. We might play a couple Bob Dylan songs tonight, but it's yeah, right. This is a cover. My favorite version of the song is by Hendrix, so I kind of like to split the difference between the two. I think you'll know it.
Must be some kind of way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion, oh, I can't get no relief. Yeah. Oh, businessman, he drink my wine, plowman dig my earth. Is worth. Hey, no reason to get excited. The thief he kindly spoke. Well, there are many here amongst us who feel that life is but a joke. You and I, we've been through life, and this is not our fate. So let us stop talking falsely now. The hour's getting late. Princess kept her view. Well, men and women, they came and went, barefoot servants too. And outside in the cold distance, a wildcat did growl. Two riders were approaching, and the wind began to howl. Ooh, ooh.
Hey, you. So another cover here. We're gonna stick around in around the 60s and 70s now. Take away this harmonica. I got this harmonica actually in Dubai. My wife got it for me. So this is also an immigrant, which is pretty cool. Yeah, oh yeah, I don't remember the words. I get requests sometimes of I get requests mostly of like other people's songs, because I mean, who wants to listen to my songs? But like, they're like, oh yeah, play some Dylan. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll play some Dylan. But sometimes I get requests for my song, and I'm always like, oh, that's awesome. Except I don't know how to play it, because I haven't played it in so long, so that just happened. But I will play some originals today, I promise, but we're gonna keep on going down the route of covers for a bit.
So you think you could tell heaven from hell, blue skies from pain? Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail, a smile from a veil? So you think you could tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes for gold? Hot ashes for trees, hot air for cool breeze, cold comfort for change. And did you exchange a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in the cave? How I wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old things, the same old fears. Wish you were here.
Thank you. Hey. That's one of my dad's favorite bands, Pink Floyd. He loves the guitar, as do I. I wonder where I get it from, right? Oh, this is cool. This is a song en français. This is from Algeria. You'll know it almost like for sure. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, because then I'm going to spoil the surprise, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to jump into it. But I need my BPMs again, so let's see where that is. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. So it's in French, and I kind of mess around with it here. And I hope you like it.
comme si je n'existais pas. Elle est passée à côté de moi, sans son regard, reine de Saba. Je dirais, je sais, tout est pour toi. Oh, Aïcha, Aïcha, écoute-moi. Aïcha, Aïcha, t'en vas pas. Aïcha, Aïcha, regarde-moi. Oh, Aïcha, t'en vas pas. Aïcha, 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 écoute-moi. Aïcha, Aïcha, t'en vas pas. Aïcha, Aïcha, regardez-moi. Aïcha, Aïcha, t'en vas pas. La 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 la, Aïcha, la la la, la la la, Aïcha, la la la, Aïcha, Aïcha, la la la, Aïcha, Aïcha. Oh, Aïcha.
Hey, you! So this is an original. Now it's I'm just like it's like 95% in English, but I'm just starting to delve in writing in the Urdu language, and of course what I'm mostly doing, I've not done it yet, but the next show I play will have some of it, is that I'm taking poetry from some very celebrated Urdu poets like Allama Iqbal, and on my dad's recommendation, of course, Faiz Ahmed Faiz. But I'm not there yet, so I won't be playing that today, but it is a tease for the future. But I just threw in two lines in Urdu in this song. The reason why I did so is because it's a song that, I mean, it's actually written in the Malian blues style. So I wrote it in Malian blues because I do love that genre of blues. But it's a song about sharing, and it's called Share My Fire. And on my father's side, it's Sindhi culture, and the fire has a very, very pivotal importance to Sindhi culture. And so when I wrote this song, it was in my head, and so I wanted to add something from where my roots are from to the song, and that's where that Urdu line comes in. And so the song's called Share My Fire.
See that fire, it burns bright for me, burning sails on fire, black and agony. Come on, take my fire, it burns bright for two. Oh, shine on fire, fire's made for you, made for you. Take my fire, it burns bright for three. is made for me. Come on, share my fire. It burns bright for all. Flames never tire. Fire's made for all, made for all. Come on, share my fire. Come on, share my fire. Come on, share my fire. Oh, come on, share my fire. Thank you.
Thank you. So, for those who don't understand, I'll just explain the line. Noor is light, but it's in this case it's meaning a very spiritual light. So tu noor se hai, speaking to our saints. You are from light. Main torab se hun. Torab is earth, and I'm from earth. In your court, whatever wish you have is made and it is completed. So whatever you ask for is brought to completion. And so that's what it means. But it sounds much nicer in Urdu than in English. I'm going to play another original. Okay. This is a song that I just wrote about maybe 3.5 or so weeks ago. And the reason why I always look at my phone is because it has my set list, which I always forget. And also my lyrics, which I also always forget. So this thing saves my life. So I'll put some juice in this.
I'm going west to make my home, to turn the earth to the crops they grow, to the sweat it drills and it pour. The harvest comes and I reap it all in the city square. I sell my haul till the money's bursting in my walls. I only owned goes and goes, and goes and goes. Clear more land and spread my fame till every corner it knows my name. I take it all the praise. For wealth and glory they get me high, but in the end my well is dry. I take it all unsatisfied. I've only owned goes and goes, it goes and goes. Snow it falls in scattered heaps. My wealth and glory will not keep my body warm underneath. I've only owned it goes and goes, it goes and goes. Hey you. Thank you all so much. I'm gonna jump into some blues here. I love the blues. It's an old blues song. I mean, most blues songs are old, so it's a blues song. No, thank you. No, all good, thank you. Original, of course, is by the legendary Robert Johnson, but I'm not doing this in a Delta blues style. I'm doing this in a bit more of a oomph blues style. I don't think that's a real blues style, but I call it the oomph style, where it got some energy to it. So it'll start off a bit Delta bluesy, and it's called Crossroads. Went down, 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 yeah. Down, down, down. to the crossroads. I fell down on my knees. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. The crossroad, fell down on my knee. I went down to the crossroad, fell down on my knee. Oh, that's the Lord above for mercy, save me if you please. I went down to the crossroad, trying to flag it right. The crossroad, trying to flag it right. Oh, everybody pass me, nobody's stopping by, alright. Yeah, down at the crossroads. Alright, say, well, you could still bear a house, baby, down by the riverside. Yeah, you can still bear a house, baby, down by the riverside. Still bear a house, baby, down by the riverside. Yeah. Thank you.
It's a mashup that I usually play with my band in Edmonton, but I will play it solo, so it's a bit slow, but it's two really iconic songs and songs that were for the struggle, and so I thought, yeah, no, I'd play this one tonight, and it mashes up Tracy Chapman and Bob Dylan.
Don't you know, talking about a revolution, it sounds like a whisper. Don't you know, talking about a revolution, it sounds like a whisper. Standing in the welfare line, we're at doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment line, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know, talking about a revolution, it sounds like a whisper. Come gather around, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and don't be too soon. It's like a storm, no telling who that is in. You better start swimming, or you sink like a stone, for the times they are changing. Poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Don't you know you better run, 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 run. I said you better run, 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 run. Come writers and critics, who prophesize with your pen. Keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. There's no telling who that it's named. The loser now will be the later to win, for the times they are changing. And finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Whoa, whoa. And finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Don't you know? Talking about a revolution, it sounds like the times they are a-changing, you know. Talking about a revolution, it sounds like the times they are a-changing, you know. They're talking about a revolution, it sounds like the times they are a-changing, you know. They're talking about a revolution, it sounds like the times they are a-changing, like the times they are a-changing, like the times they are a-changing.
Thank you. I have one more song I'm gonna play here, and it's an original, and it's one of the oldest that I wrote, and I'm gonna tell you all about it right now. And that right now is kind of like a figurative right now. Takes a little second. All right, I got my metronome set up. Now I'll tell you. So this song is not the oldest song I wrote. I wrote plenty of songs that were just really bad, and those kind of just go right to the garbage, right? But this one snuck through the screening process, and I kept it and I liked it, and it's called Ownership. And I just want to speak to you a little bit about it and what inspired it. And so ever since I was a kid, I had a very deep love for nature and for the natural world, animals and landscapes and ecosystems. I mean, outside of this, I'm an environmental engineer, and all of that was driven by this passion. Like, oh my God, like nature is incredible. It's billions of years old, right? It's so wise. And so this song I wrote is called Ownership, and it speaks to this to that colonial mentality that, oh, Papua New Guinea, mine. Oh, what's this? This is South America? Mine. I own it. This is mine now. Sorry, I put my flag here, gun here, mine. So like that mentality, it's something where if you look at indigenous tribes, they never had that. And I don't just mean in North America, I mean globally, like in Asia and in Africa. There was, rather than looking at the earth as something you owned, you looked at something you shared. You were a part of the earth and the earth was a part of you. And that changed with colonialism. And so it bothered me, and so I wrote this song which speaks to that concept of ownership. And it's a very simple song, and I hope you like it. And it's my last song of the night, so thank you all for having me here. It's a total pleasure. If you liked my music, you can check me out. I'm on Spotify, YouTube, all that fun. Well, I guess just Spotify and YouTube, but I also have a website, so it's The Metro Nomad. If you look me up on Instagram, it's TheMetroNomad. METRONOMAD. Sounds complicated, but it's literally just the space Metro Nomad as one word. So thank you again, and this song's called Ownership.
Red sky, blue river. Why can't believe what I see, but what I see is so beautiful. And red stars, blue heaven. Can't believe what I see, but what I see is so beautiful. And whose hand can hold the river? Whose breath can move the mountains? Whose eyes can encompass vigor? Not his lips though as like sand through the cracks, but the shroud's not open. The tongue's uncertain. Eyes don't know they're closing or opening up. Behind the veil is lying, mystery is hiding. How can they claim ownership? Red sand, blue horizon. Can't believe what I see, but what I see is so beautiful. And red, blue waters. Can't believe what I see, but what I see is so beautiful. Whose hand can hold the deserts? Whose breath can move mountains? Whose eyes can bring the sunrise? Not as this who eyes like sand through the cracks, but the shroud's not open and the tongue's uncertain. Eyes know they're closing, we're opening up. Behind the veil is lying, mystery is hiding. How can they claim ownership? Oh, yeah, yeah. Da 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 da. Well, the shroud's not open, the tongue's uncertain. Eyes know they're closing, we're opening up. Behind the veil is lying, and mystery is hiding. How can they claim ownership? Oh, how can they claim ownership? Oh, how can they claim ownership?
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you very much to all of you for your beautiful and very gracious presence. We are thankful on behalf of Hari Sharma Foundation that you took this Saturday evening off to come and spend with us. We are very grateful to all of you. Have a wonderful drive home. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you.